What the actual fuck? Yes, that's how I will greet you this morning. How is it possible that we had a top tier group of presidential advisors, including the Secretary of Defense, Kate Hegseth, including the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, and others, using the private, not the government group chat on Signal to communicate anything related to their jobs in the government, first of all. And second of all, more specifically, to communicate with each other the most highly sensitive war plans for an imminent attack on a foreign country. That alone would be a fireable offense, immediate, for all of the people doing this if they were caught. Moreover, it would be on the front page of every newspaper until these folks were hounded into resigning. Now, on top of this, though, as you know, it's even worse than that. In this group chat on Signal, and if some of you aren't on Signal, it's kind of the same thing as your typical group chat on your iPhone, for example, or Facebook Messenger, right? There is this group chat, and somehow Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor in chief of the news magazine The Atlantic, whose name, so to speak, on his Signal chat is JG. Someone has identified him as JG. Adds him. This is the director of national intelligence, apparently, added JG, Jeffrey Goldberg, to this group chat. And he adds him. And if you've seen a group chat, when someone is added, you can see, and it probably said JG added. And nobody seemed to ask at all who the F is JG. I ask people when there's a phone number in a group chat or whatever, who is on this? Who are these people? But I also don't share any high level secret information about the government because I don't have it on an unsecured server out in the world. Now, they add JG's on this chat. And then Pete Hegseth, our Secretary of Defense, proceeds to communicate with this large group of people, as well as the editor in chief of The Atlantic, detailed war plans about an imminent attack. And this is on March 15th, an imminent attack on Yemen with details. So Jeff Goldberg is sitting there driving or whatever. I think he at some point was like in the parking lot of a store. And he sees this text chat and he thinks, is this a hoax? Is someone trying to get me as a reporter to set my hair on fire and accuse these people of being idiots? So he wasn't sure. So he waited. He waited. And shortly thereafter, I think it was within an hour, about an hour or so, the bombs start raining down. And then he was like, holy shiitake, I shouldn't be in this group chat. So he exited it. And then after that, because this was March 15th, the story only broke yesterday, March 24th, he went about trying to reach out to the people who were on the chat, some of whom went by their full names, others their initials, to say, are you aware that I was on this chat? Questions like, how often do you use Signal to communicate? Because doesn't this violate things like the Presidential Records Act and other things? Um, and ask, for verification if this indeed was what he thought it was. Okay. So the story breaks yesterday. And I want to just give where credit, give credit where credit is due, and share with you the actual story here. So this is the piece in the Atlantic. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I recommend, this is a gifted story that someone gave. I'm clicking on. So this is the story. Then we're going to get the reactions. The Trump administration accidentally texted me its war plans. U.S. national security leaders included me in a group chat about upcoming military strikes in Yemen. I didn't think it could be real. Then the bombs started falling. Okay, so this story broke, and Donald Trump's well, first of all, just to be clear, he got confirmation from, because none of those cabinet secretaries wanted to respond to him. So he did get confirmation from the White House that this was indeed what he thought it was, that this was this high level group chat. But when Donald Trump was asked about it, he pulled his usual, oh, I don't know anything about it. And then he said something to attack the Atlantic magazine. No one reads it. What a terrible publication. Like just denying it after it had already been confirmed on the record. And then Pete Hegseth himself, former Fox News anchor who was accused credibly of coming to work drunk, who has never held down a job without being fired for his incompetence, who somehow, despite all the warnings in the world about him not being qualified, about him being drunk on the job, about him mismanaging the veterans operations he ran, not to mention being someone who was sued for sexual assault, which case settled. Okay, this man was still confirmed by the Senate to be our Secretary of Defense. And so is it any wonder that he is lying, as he did before at his confirmation, about what happens? Let's play what Pete Hegseth's response was to these accusations.
One question. Can you share how your information about war plans against the Houthis in Yemen was shared with a journalist in the Atlantic? And were those details classified? You're talking about a deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes time and time again, to include the hoaxes of Russia, or the fine people on both sides hoax, or suckers and losers hoax. So this is the guy that peddles in garbage. This is what he does. I would love to comment on the Houthi campaign because of the skill and courage of our troops. I've monitored it very closely from the beginning. And you see, we've been managing 4 years of deferred maintenance under the Trump administration. Our troops, our sailors were getting shot at as targets. Our ships couldn't sail through. And when they did shoot back, it was purely defensively or at shacks in Yemen.
Okay. Doesn't answer the question. Not responsive. First thing he tries to do is shoot the messenger. And then he talks about how the campaign was successful. Nothing at all about this being communicated on Signal. And let me now have a response from Jeffrey Goldberg.
Not disclose the things that I read and saw. I will describe them to you. The specific time of a future attack, specific targets, including human targets, meant to be killed in that attack, weapon systems, even weather reports, that the government is. I don't know why Hegseth was sharing it with everybody. I mean, the precise detail, and then a long section on sequencing. This is going to happen, then that is going to happen. After that happens, this happens, then that happens, and then we go and find out if it worked. I mean,
these are war plans. So he is lying. And let me add one more thing Jeffrey Goldberg had to say about the situation we are in.
Very flummoxing to me because I haven't seen this kind of unserious behavior before. And, and the Secretary of Defense, all due respect, in that presentation seems like a person who's unserious and is trying to deflect from the fact that he participated in a conversation on an unclassified commercial messaging app that he probably shouldn't have participated in.
And there are receipts for it, which is always a danger of.
So yes, there are receipts for it. And so remember this article in the Atlantic, I am now thinking of subscribing, that yes, the Trump administration in this group chat texted him war plans. Now, I got to say something else. We've been hearing, you probably heard that they should have used what's called a SCIF, an SCIF, which is something like a specialized, something like a special or secret compartmentalized something. There are areas you can go into where there would be no wireless signals. People have these in their homes, they're in the White House. There are ways to communicate on an actual government phone. And let's be clear, your cell phone, if you're given a phone with the US government, any of the people in this group chat cannot add signal to their phone. They were using their private cell phones. And people think, well, Signal is secure. Okay, let me just tell you something. Signal allows you to erase text communications on whatever regularity you want. I have them in some Signal chats, okay? But let's say I'm in a group chat with Susan, Deb. Let's say Susan and Deb and I think they're here today. Who else is here? These are my two mods. Okay. So we have Susan and Deb, who are here today. And Jason, let's imagine the three of us are in a Signal group chat, which we're not. Let's say they set their Signal chat to disappear every 8 hours. Okay, on their end. But let's say that I don't. So this would be the pictures. Or let's say I just do screenshots and keep them. I have now kept forever those chats. Moreover, let's say, for example, that we communicated talking on Signal. There is, while it's out there, like going, traveling across here, my condo in Detroit or elsewhere, anyone can tap into that signal. So I need you to know this is not secure. It has a capacity for you to delete things, but it's not secure. Now, where were some of the people? Remember, there are these different variety of people who are on the phone. Well, I want to share with you something from Marcy Wheeler, who uses her handle Empty Wheel over on Blue Sky. And she points out, and I'm going to have to blow this one up so I can read it. She points out that Mike Waltz, he was the one who set up the Signal list. He's, I think, the director of national intelligence, if I remember correctly, that Mike Waltz is the one who set this up. And he was actually the one who inadvertently, I'm sorry, he's not the DNI, he's a national security advisor, just as bad. So he set up this group chat. He is the one who added in to the group chat Jeff Goldberg. Also in this group chat was someone we mentioned yesterday, Steve Witkoff, the special envoy to the Middle East. And where was Witkoff? Do you remember that we told you yesterday that Witkoff had been, and I just need to, I'm going to get rid of this. Witkoff, in addition to being an envoy to the Middle East, was also moonlighting as an envoy to Russia to try to solve the problem in the war in Ukraine. And he was, we showed yesterday, denying that Putin was the aggressor and so on. Where was Witkoff on Saturday the 15th while this Signal chat was going on? He was waiting. He was sitting down waiting in Moscow to meet with Vladimir Putin. That is where he was. So yes, let's look at this again. Marcy Wheeler. The principals had apparently assembled. In all, 18 individuals were listed as members of this group chat, including National Security Council officials Steve Witkoff, who's the president's Middle East and Ukraine negotiator, Susie Wiles, who's the White House chief of staff, and someone only identified as SM, which he took to be Stephen Miller. What Marcy points out is that at that time, we have a situation where Witkoff was there, ready to meet with Putin. So that is not great. Okay, but let's move on and say this. Can you imagine what Hillary Clinton was thinking when she saw this clusterfuck? To think that she was hounded by the press, to think that she probably lost the 2016 election because their overemphasis on Donald Trump's accusations that she was not fit to serve because she had a private server in her home that was actually secure, even though she wasn't supposed to have that. Well, if you're wondering what the fuck Hillary Clinton is thinking, you can look right here. She has not moved to Blue Sky. She's still on Twitter. And here is a screenshot of her account. Yes, this is her account. No kidding. So the article, the Trump administration accidentally texted me its war plan. She did a screenshot, and above it, you have the 2 eyes emoji. You have got to be kidding me. Yes, Hillary, we feel the same way. Which brings me to CNN put together a string of people, including Hegseth, and those who were on this call, attacking Hillary and condemning anyone who would do anything non-secure with important government information. Remember, nothing Hillary shared was, of course, at this level. Real-time war plans, first of all, not on Signal, on a private server. Okay, here we go. Let's take a listen.
If there was anyone other than Hillary Clinton, they would be in jail right now.
Nobody is above the law, not even Hillary Clinton, even though she thinks she is.
Mishandling classified information is still a violation of the Espionage Act.
When you have the Clinton emails, on top of the fact that the sitting president of the United States admitted he had documents in his garage, they didn't prosecute, they didn't go after these folks.
Hillary Clinton responded tonight with this: "You have got to be kidding me."
We feel you, Hillary. We really, really do. Now, I'm going to have to end the show at 9 o'clock exactly. So I got a few more things for you before we do Crazy Town. First, my dear friend, Lita Seletsky, Lita McCullough-Seletsky put this out. Text stop to opt out of updates on war plans. Love it. Melissa Murray spotted it. Here it is on Blue Sky. Just so you know, I think I've mentioned Lita before, and I interviewed her for my old podcast called Booked Up. She wrote the memoir Kneeling Man about her father, who was actually on the balcony when MLK was shot. It is an utterly brilliant memoir, detective story, and piece of American history. I highly recommend it. Now, a couple more things about this story in the Atlantic, and then we've got 2 more quick news items about to share with you before Crazy Town. Let's listen to what Mayor Pete had to say about this. Now, yes, he went on with Caitlin Collins, but I want to show you how versatile he is. He was out on TikTok giving his reaction to this shiitake show.
Been with a take on everything or comment on everything we see in the news of the day, but what we learned about today is truly incredible. The U.S. Secretary of Defense, the National Security Advisor, the Vice President of the United States, and other very senior, very powerful Trump White House officials, it turns out, discussed highly classified war plans, not only on an unclassified channel, but accidentally and randomly, it seems, including a journalist. And to see this administration claiming that it cares about competence and merit, and then be responsible for an epic fuck-up like this, demonstrates that these are not serious people. I was an intelligence officer for about 7 years in the U.S. Navy Reserve, and I occasionally handled highly classified information during my time in the cabinet as well. It can be hard to explain just how much goes into keeping that information safe. It is only available to people with a security clearance and a need to know. It's only discussed in certain facilities that are hardened to make sure that they don't have the same vulnerability to surveillance as most places. And importantly, you only ever use classified systems to discuss classified information. So America needs answers on why an unclassified, commercially available app was used, and even more importantly, how some of the most powerful people in this country didn't know that they accidentally included a journalist while they were discussing classified war plans that they had yet to authorize and execute. This is not something that's just important for its own sake. I know Americans who lost their lives because of intelligence failure.
Do you remember Benghazi? Do you remember how the media, and especially how Republicans swarmed around this? Well, Democrats, you have a moment to actually deal with something really serious today. There is a hearing, one of these Senate confirmation hearings about yet another, I believe, one of Donald Trump's nominees. I'm pretty sure, or there is a House Intelligence Committee meeting today. There is some, and I don't know what it is, but there is some congressional hearing today where there will be an opportunity, it's either in the Senate or the House, for Democrats on this committee to grill the people. I believe some of the people on this particular call will be there for other reasons. They need to grill them, and they need to coordinate among themselves so that we get not necessarily answers, but because they won't give them, put these people on the spot. Now, what else do I have for you? We're heading for a major, if we aren't already in one, constitutional crisis type showdown. Judge Boasberg, as you may remember, ordered Donald Trump's administration to answer him about these flights that went to El Salvador with people that they claimed were subject to the Alien Enemies Act, who got absolutely no due process. Anyone could have been pulled off the street, no due process. We could have been accused of being somebody, and we could be any of us just taken, thrown into custody, and sent to El Salvador. What happened last night was this, or yesterday evening was this. The Trump administration invoked the state secrets privilege, saying it will give Judge Boasberg no more information about the deportation flights to inform his decision about whether the government defied his orders when they failed to turn the plane around. Are you fucking kidding me? It's a state secret they're claiming about some people who many are and many are not, maybe alleged gang members from Venezuela. This is a fucking state secret that Judge Boasberg, who has handled state secrets and could handle them very discreetly, they won't tell him, but okay, plans to bomb the Houthis, we can just do that over Signal where Putin could be listening in? Are you fucking kidding me? I look forward to Judge Boasberg's response to that. And that isn't even crazy town. Now, the one other thing I have, and I'm sorry I did not cross his face out, is this. And I can just share this with you without sharing his face. This is a huge follow the money story. Huge, huge, huge. And it's going to get lost. Unfortunately, the story is going to get lost because we are, of course, focused on this national security issue. So what is the deal here? I'm going to drop this. It's a story, an Axios. Here we go. I'm just going to drop this here, and I don't need to share this screen with you because you can follow along at home, and it's just a bunch of words for you. Here's the deal. Private equity, which are these big fund managers who, as you know, buy up companies, some who are struggling, and strip out any of the cash. And the managers of these, and sometimes fire people and shut the businesses down. They sometimes ruin companies, but the people who manage, so look, imagine you buy up these companies, and who buys it up? This private equity firm, okay? An entity. Let's say you're one of the owners, so to speak, of the private, equity firm. You're one of the owners of it. When you get paid money, like your income, it's not treated the same way that my income when I get paid from my university salary is. Specifically, there's something called the carried interest loophole. And before Donald Trump, when he was running for office in 2015, he said he would close it. And then lo and behold, he gets all this support from private equity. In fact, at the end of 2017, when the Trump tax scam bill was passed, and then later, after that, when they had to balance the budget and change some things around, always private equity got special treatment. And that part was also thanks to Kristen Sinema. But at any rate, Donald Trump is again taking aim at this carried interest loophole. And so what is private equity going to do? Because they get special treatment. For example, when it's the income you get from being an owner of one of these big private equity funds, it's taxed at a 23.8% rate. When it could be taxed, it would be at the tons of money they're making above a certain level. Their top tier would be 40%. This is a huge difference for these 100 millionaires and billionaires. And so what is happening here is private equity is going to spend millions of dollars in sort of marketing campaigns and other ways to make sure this does not happen to them. And we talk about this being a loophole, and this is where I want to share with you. I don't know if you know what a loophole is. What you're looking at here is a slit in a castle from the inside. This happens to be Windsor Castle. In medieval castles, what a loophole was, right? Loop comes from the French. It does not come from, it doesn't come from, like you think of like a stitch, right? A loophole was a slit in the castle wall. So if you're on the inside, you could shoot arrows out. Do you see the little cross? So you can kind of get your arrow out there and you can shoot an arrow at your attacking enemies, people trying to storm the castle. And then you can see here's the Tower of London, what these loopholes, these loops look like. Okay, so when you think about loopholes that start to be used in legislation, a loophole is something put in there that no one sees from the outside, but it becomes a protective device for people who want to hold on to their money. So that is a loophole. I always associated it with yarn, like something like a hole in a sweater you knit, but indeed it goes back to the medieval era. These people have fortresses, their fortresses is the legislation that they have lobbied for to protect their wealth, or moreover, the structures, the private equity structures that they have built to take advantage of the difference between capital gains taxation levels and ordinary income. And Donald Trump is there exposing it, but don't believe for a minute that he will come to their aid. Okay, it is now time for Crazy Town, my friends. Here we go. Or psychedelic Crazy Town this morning. Okay. Crazy Town is none other than Josh Hawley. Josh Hawley, who sprinted away during the January 6th attack on the Capitol and later acted like it was just an ordinary tour, ordinary picnic, nothing violent. Not surprisingly, he is defending Donald Trump. And I need you to hear this. It is crazy.
At 11:44.
Oh, I'm sorry, not just Donald Trump, the Donald Trump administration, specifically this shiitake show of the Signal chat sharing with a journalist war
Plan at 11:44 a.m. The plan included precise information about weapons packages, targets, and timing. Senator, your reaction to this?
Well, I thought what the Secretary of Defense just said, Laura, was an outstanding statement. And listen, I mean, we don't know how much of this is accurate or not, but it looks like even if everything the Atlantic reported is true, it's the president's advisors discussing among themselves options they might recommend to the president. And nobody can deny the success of what the president is doing here, which is what Pete Hegseth just underscored. And this is what the leftist media is reduced to. They can't argue with the policies, which the American people support. They can't argue with this new demonstration of American strength that is keeping Americans safe at home and abroad. And so now we're griping about who's on a text message and who's not. I mean,